Hello, and here's some more news from my recent trip to Milan and the EICMA Expo 2022. I'm not there anymore, obviously, basically because it's so difficult to find anywhere remotely agreeable and safe to park up the old camping car and do some work. So I'm about 3 hours down the road in the countryside just outside the city of Parma. Just over an hour or so's ride from Bologna, where I need to be in a couple of days to pick up a Ducati Desert X, and after that a Street Fighter V2 that I'll be reporting on for the channel in the coming weeks. However, I was traipsing around the halls of the EICMA Expo a little over 24 hours ago, and one of the welcome sights, at least for me, was a Ducati stand, something that was glaringly absent from last year's show. It was big, featured all their models, and when I pitched up at one point, it had the added bonus of a certain Pecco Bagnaia, recently crowned MotoGP World Champion. He wanted to chat about the channel, obviously, but I was really busy filming, so maybe next time we'll make some space in the report for a few words from him. Yeah, right, wishful thinking. He was hidden, understandably, behind hundreds, maybe even thousands of adoring, chanting fans, and I couldn't be arsed fighting through the throngs of people. So this long shot is all you're going to get, I'm afraid. Anyway, the stand was full of lovely bikes, as you would expect, including the new models that Ducati has been regularly launching online over the past, month and a half or so? Not much to say there, other than that after being underwhelmed by the Monster SP after its online reveal, I was actually more impressed seeing it in the flesh. It does look a step up from the standard bike, although the lack of any genuine extra performance is still something of a disappointment. The Street Fighter V4 SP2 is just as gorgeous and desirable as I thought it would be, and the Diavel V4 also cuts a suitably dashing figure, and the quadruple exhaust effect is much more engaging and striking when you see it in real life, rather than in pictures or video. Hopefully my Spielberg-like filming gives you an idea of that impact. Otherwise, the new stuff was pretty much restricted to the latest online reveal that we have yet to feature on the bike show, and that's the updated Scrambler range. So let's get into some details. 2023 will see 3 Scrambler models available in the shapes of the Icon, the Night Shift and the Full Throttle. Across all models there's now a lighter 8-plate clutch, new covers for the alternator and clutch itself that feature the Scrambler's X logo, and the 803cc air-cooled V-twin itself is now 2.5 kilos lighter than the previous incarnation, which contributes to the Scrambler now being 4 kilos lighter overall. Power stays the same at 73 horsepower. There's a new swing arm, a retuned positioning of the rear shock, while on the electronic side we now have a ride-by-wire throttle with 2 riding modes. There's now also Ducati traction control and cornering ABS, and a quick shifter, although the quick shifter is only standard on the full throttle. On the Icon there's different coloured body and tank parts available so that you can personalise your bike and its colours, and that goes for the headlight cover, wheel tags and mudguards as well. The Icon also has a lower handlebar that extends further back towards the rider, and there's a tapered seat which Ducati says gives it a more streamlined look. The Night Shift is, again according to Ducati, the most elegant of the 3 new models, and the Cafe Racer vibe is achieved with a dark blue colour, a dark brown stitched leather seat, side number boards, a shortened front mudguard, no rear mudguard at all, a flat handlebar and bar end mirrors. The Full Throttle, meanwhile, has a similar mudguard treatment, features the number 62 to celebrate the year of the original Scrambler, and there's a flat track style skid plate. There's a sportier riding position and the seat to go with it, a Terminioni exhaust and Ducati Performance LED indicators. That's about your lot from Ducati, so let's move on to the other big sport bike manufacturer in Italy, Aprilia. They too had their usual sizable stand, but there wasn't much that was new on it. You could easily have missed a more extreme version of the RS 660 that is called the RS660 EICMA. Don't get your hopes up though, because the extreme treatment doesn't include anything for the engine other than a lightweight exhaust from SC Project. In fact, it's all about the weight saving on the EICMA, which is fair enough, I suppose, given it's a sport bike. So along with the weight saving on the exhaust, there's a special anodized exhaust bracket that lets you remove the passenger foot pegs entirely, though they are included with the bike, so you can fit them when you need to give lifts. There's a lovely carbon front mudguard and belly pan for that extra bit of weight loss, and a single seat tail unit. All in all, you're looking at a not at all heavy, ready to ride weight of 166 kilos, which is quite remarkable in this day and age of generally bigger, heavier motorbikes. The EICMA also gets an extra electronic feature that allows you to easily reverse the gear shift so that you can have a race ready up is down shift for your track day antics. And not forgetting the dedicated red and white livery that lets your peers know you have the trickiest RS660 it's possible to get. Other than that, most interesting yet often overlooked bike on the Aprilia stand was a little electric concept called the Electrica. You had to look hard to notice it wasn't just a normal petrol powered machine. And to be fair, it's so early in its design phase that there are basically no details on offer other than it has handbrakes for front and rear brakes. It uses a chain final drive and both the motor and battery are centrally mounted, though how big is the battery and whether it's swappable, that sort of thing, that's just anybody's guess. As to whether there is any firm plan or timeline to get this attractive little motard style bike into production for the youth market it's obviously aimed at, only Aprilia knows. And to be honest, maybe even they don't know at this stage. There are obviously other smaller Italian marques to report on from EICMA, but I'll save those for another video and instead end this one with a look at what was going on with the Brits at Triumph. To be fair, what was going on was not really that much, although I have to say that regardless of that fact, Triumph's current overall popularity cannot be overestimated, because during my 2 days at the expo, it was this stand that was consistently the most crowded. I enjoyed seeing the electric prototype in the flesh, and for a test mule, it's still a lovely thing that you could see yourself spending good money on. And yes, it very much does look like an electric speed triple. The new street triples were probably the highlight of the stand for most, and some pretty involved modifications for 2023 add some useful extra performance, while the cosmetic tweaks make for fantastic looking naked bikes that are of course uniquely Triumph thanks to those unique headlights. I've always been a huge fan of these street triples. I've owned a couple of 675Rs myself, and every time I get a chance to ride the latest 765s, I never fail to be anything other than hugely impressed, not just by the wonderful engine, but perhaps even more by the light, easy handling. So I have no doubt that these three updated models will be exactly the sort of bikes that will do it for me. The base one is the 765R, the hot one for the road is the RS, and then there is a Moto 2 edition that obviously celebrates Triumph's successful supply of engines for that championship. The engines have had a proper seeing to, and so there's new pistons, conrods, combustion chambers, camshafts and a higher compression ratio. There's also a reworked gearbox with a shorter final drive for more aggressive acceleration. The base R version gets a still useful 118 horsepower, the same as my Yamaha MT-09 and hence also the SP version of the MT. It's a couple of brake horsepower more than KTM's base 890 Duke and 13 more than BMW's F900R. The RS and Moto 2 editions get a stonking 128 horsepower, and that puts them comfortably ahead of the 890 Duke R from KTM, which is its natural closest competitor. The differences between the models extend to the suspension setups, and that also has a very slight knock-on effect in terms of geometry as well. The R runs a Showa big piston separate function fork with a rear shock from the same supplier. The RS gets a higher spec Showa big piston fork and an Öhlins STX rear shock, while the Moto 2 edition gets the Öhlins NIX 30 fork and the same SDX 40 shock as the RS. In terms of the geometry, that means the steering gradually gets steeper, a bit sharper then as the model gets sportier, but by the same token, the wheelbase gets gradually very slightly longer as well. As for the brakes, it's Brembo's M4 calipers and 310mm discs on the base R model, while the other two models get Brembo's Stylema R calipers and the same size discs, but they also get a Brembo master cylinder and ratio adjustable lever. As for the electronic side of things, there's new cornering ABS and traction control, and a refinement to the two-way quick shifter, and a new algorithm for the bike to ponder over when it's trying to control your wheelies. There's 4 riding modes for the R and the RS, with a 5th one being a dedicated track setting for the Moto 2 version, and the 5-inch TFT dash will also have connectivity via the My Triumph app that will do all the usual stuff, including turn-by-turn navigation. I don't have exact prices for Europe or South Africa even, but going by what has been released so far, I'd say about 10,000 euros or 180,000 rand for the R, 12,600 euros or about 225,000 rand for the RS, and about 15,400 euros or so for the Moto 2 edition, which is about 270,000 rand. By the way, the Moto 2 edition will be limited to 1,530 units, and if you're wondering why that many, it's 765 each of the 2 available colours. Right, that's the big news from Triumph, although I would also like to quickly add that they showed off some new chrome special versions of certain models like the Rockets, Bonnevilles, T100 and T20, Bobber, Speedmaster, Scrambler, Thruxton and Speed Twin, and probably a couple more I haven't even mentioned. The upgrades are intentionally purely cosmetic and are the sort of cheesy aesthetic I would normally delight in taking the piss out of, but see them in the flesh, so to speak, and the effect is, well, simply stunning, classy, expensive looking. The chrome finish looks inches deep and utterly flawless and is centered naturally, I suppose, on the tank. It's fabulous, and I'd actually pay the extra, between 500 and 800 euros, depending on the model, so about 8 to 14,000 rand more. Expensive, but given the result, I'd have to say totally worth it. Stick one on a speed or street triple, which they don't currently seem to do. I'd be there in a flash. Right, that's genuinely it for this video. Check out our other reports of the new stuff from EICMA, or indeed some of our road tests or other features elsewhere on the channel. And for now, cheers. See you in the next video.